The German Class 50 was specifically designed to be used on branch lines, and yet it is about as powerful and as heavy as Britain's mighty 9F. Following the German annexation in 1938 were the 16 Hungarian Mali tender locomotives that were employed by the Czechoslovak State Railways, classified as 51 by the Deutsche Reichsbahn. And exactly this classification of such a small locomotive class is the only reason the about 7,000 line wall locomotives directly derived from the Class 50 could not be called Class 51, but had to be called Class 52 instead. In the mid-1930s ordered the Deutsche Reichsbahn for the cab roofs of steam locomotives to be painted in grey. It's unclear, however, to what extent that was actually ever carried out, as grime-covered grey is not just on old photos, pretty much indistinguishable from black. The 60s number range in the Reichsbahn classification scheme was intended for passenger tank locomotives of standard design. The Class 60 locomotives, however, were incorrectly sorted into here as they were not standards, but overtaken from the nationalized Lübeck-Büchner Eisenbahn in 1938. But I'm pretty certain that this was done intentionally, because the streamlined locomotives that were at that point still fairly new, they paired nicely with the Class 61. It makes no sense that a locomotive that uses oil to produce steam is called a steam locomotive, while a locomotive that uses oil to produce electricity is called a diesel locomotive. Sometimes, the tires of locomotives and wagons were painted black to make cracks easier visible, as the bare metal inside a newly formed crack would contrast to the black paint. Sometimes the tires of locomotives and wagons were painted white to make cracks easier visible, as the grime and dirt collecting inside the crack would contrast to the white paint. Go figure. Prussia's P10 locomotives were classified as passenger machines, hence the P, despite their top speed as well as assigned trains, clearly indicating an express locomotive. The reason behind that is that their drivers were simply too small to fulfill the official requirements for an express locomotive. The Prussian G12.1 is older than the G12. The G12.1 was in fact originally called G12, but as its successor, the first de facto standard class, became so numerous, it was deemed more practical to call those G12 and reclassify the old ones to G12.1. After all, the .1 or .2 classifications were never applied to the locomotives themselves anyway, but just appeared on paper. The classification of all late Prussian steam locomotive designs were even numbered, like G12 or P10, while a G11 or P9 do simply not exist. And that's because starting around 1900, even numbers were used to indicate superheated locomotives, while uneven numbers were used for conventional ones. But as the latter one became obsolete pretty soon, this distinction did hardly anything more than leaving gaps in Prussia's classification scheme. The 1994 formed Deutsche Bahn AG used to have some steam locomotives in their regular fleet, so I'm not talking about heritage locomotives. Those of course came from the former East German Reichsbahn, but were quickly withdrawn and never painted in traffic red. Imagine if some YouTuber would make an April Fool's video out of that. I hope you learned something new from these random facts, and if you did, show some appreciation to our channel and Patreon members who make videos like these possible. So thank you so much for that. And if you want to learn more random railway facts, check out this playlist.